She's killed by her own sister's spear, not an enemy blade, not Theseus's sword, her own sister, in the chaos of a war that her husband started by betraying her. Hippolyta, the Amazon queen, dies fighting to destroy the very marriage the myths call a love story. Here's the question you should be asking right now. If this was really a romance, why did her entire nation ride hundreds of miles to burn her husband's city to the ground? Stick around, because you're going to watch a hero get exposed as something much darker. And you're going to understand why ancient Athens spent centuries lying about how their city was really built. So let's rewind. Before the spear, before the war, before any of it. Because here's what nobody tells you. Theseus's original plan wasn't even the abduction. It failed before it started. And the reason it failed is the same reason everything after it turns into a bloodbath. Three things are about to happen that most retellings conveniently skip. Hippolyta doesn't go quietly. Her people don't mourn, they invade. And the ending you think you know, it's not the one that's actually recorded. Let's get into it. Theseus arrives at Themiscyra, the Amazon capital on the Black Sea, as a guest. Sometimes it's framed as a joint mission with Heracles, sent to retrieve Hippolyta's war belt. Either way, he is received as a guest of a sovereign queen. And in the ancient world, that word, guest, is sacred. It's called Xenia. Zeus himself is called Zeus Xenios, the god who punishes hosts who betray guests and guests who betray hosts. Breaking Xenia isn't rude. It's a crime against the gods themselves. Hippolyta honors that law. Some versions say she offers her belt freely out of curiosity about the famous Athenian. She feeds him, shelters him, trusts him. Here's the head fake most people fall for. You'd expect the myth to end there. Diplomatic visit, peaceful exchange, done. That's what should happen if this were really the noble encounter history pretends it is. It doesn't end there. Because at some point during that visit, something changes. And Theseus doesn't sail home with a gift. He sails home with the queen herself, dragged onto his ship, taken by force, carried to Athens against her will. Sit with what that actually means. This isn't a farmer's daughter. This is a head of state, a monarch who commands thousands of warriors, extended trust under sacred law, and repaid with a kidnapping. And this is the part they never put in the highlight reel. Hippolyta's people didn't grieve her. They went to war, not a rescue party, an invasion. The Amazons rode from the Black Sea into the heart of Athens itself. Ancient sources describe them making camp on the Areopagus, the hill right beside the Acropolis, and fighting street battles in the Athenian capital for months. Pause on that. A foreign nation invaded the capital city of Greece because their queen was taken. That's not the reaction of a people who thought their monarch found happiness. That's a nation responding to an act of war. Now here's the detail buried in almost every retelling. Some ancient sources, including Plutarch, describe Hippolyta herself riding into that battle against her own captor's city. She doesn't sit in a palace as a passive bride. She takes up arms and fights to tear down the marriage everyone calls a love story. You'd expect, if this is a redemption arc, if Theseus truly won her over, that she'd stand beside him. She doesn't. She rides against him, and her death reflects exactly that. Not a peaceful fade into old age as history's most romanticized captive. Multiple ancient traditions record her dying in that very war. Some say cut down by an Athenian defender, others say struck accidentally by her own Amazon sisters in the chaos of combat, killed by friendly fire while trying to fight her way back to freedom. Another version is even darker. Jealousy consumes her after Theseus casts her aside for a new political marriage to Phaedra. Hippolyta attacks the wedding itself and dies for daring to challenge her own replacement. Neither ending is soft. Neither is romantic. Both are the death of a woman who never stopped fighting the marriage the myths insist on calling love. And Theseus, the man remembered for defeating the Minotaur, for unifying Athens, for slaying monsters, broke sacred law to take her, fathered a child with her named Hippolytus, and by most traditions, discarded her the moment a better political match appeared. The hero survives the story, the queen doesn't. That's not an accident. That's who was holding the pen. Here's the answer to the question we opened with. Her nation went to war because they knew exactly what this was. Not a marriage. A conquest dressed up in wedding language, written by the winning side for 2,000 years. This is the pattern underneath nearly every hero and his bride myth in the ancient world. Strip away the poetry and you find a guest law broken, a sovereign taken by force, and a war reduced to a footnote so the conqueror could keep his legend intact. Even Hippolytus, the son from this union, doesn't escape the wreckage. He dies later, cursed by his own father, tangled in a tragedy with his stepmother Phaedra. The violence Theseus started with Hippolyta's abduction never actually stops. It just moves to the next generation. So here's the question I want you sitting with. If a modern head of state was taken by force after being welcomed as a guest, would anyone on Earth call that a marriage? Or would we call it exactly what the Amazons called it when they marched on Athens? An act of war that history got away with for 3,000 years? Tell me your answer in the comments. And if you want the myths told the way they actually happened, not the sanitized version, subscribe, because we're just getting started.